And we're live. How are you guys doing?
What's up, boys?
Doing well.
There's not much going on in the world.
Very uneventful.
Nothing's happening in the world. so boring.
Yes,
what
really
are we talking about today?
Does it feel like the entire decade's gone by in the first 2 months of the year here? Holy cow.
That's what I struggle with. When I first started my channel, I was wondering how I'm going to come up with stuff to talk about every day. And then now when I'm preparing for my shows, I'm like, I could talk about one of 20 different things today. And it's just like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to focus on. I don't know what to pay attention to. So I usually just choose to opt out and, watch the sunrise instead.
Did you guys had any interesting conversations from the things that are happening on the war side and the things that are happening in the world, like personal anecdotes or like people writing you guys? Or I maybe I can start with one. I'm traveling a lot these days on the Bitcoin conferences. I had my dad calling me on Saturday, like, are you in like somewhere in like Abu Dhabi? And he was just concerned that I'm flying somewhere there because I'm doing a lot. So it's like, it's always interesting when an event that happens in the world not only reaches you through Twitter and YouTube, but also reaches you through the personal kind of like parents checking in, friends checking in kind of a lane. And I was just curious if you guys also had like something like that.
Not me. My family friends, they're just kind of used to, me talking about Bitcoin, the price going up, the price going down. I don't know. It's one of those things right now where sentiment's down, it seems like, but it's people I found who are just really excited in 2025, who had very high expectations of Bitcoin and that didn't play out. And maybe they were over leveraged. Maybe they bought Bitcoin with money that they needed right now. And so they're frustrated, but it's like, it's an opportunity now. We just keep going back to it over and over again, but we can't say it enough. And these are the days where you make a dent in Bitcoin. These are the days you wish for when the price is running up and you're getting a smaller amount of sats per dollar. Like that's where we are today. And I think that we should just smile about it because it's a blessing.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had anybody reach out personally about it, but like anything surrounding, the Middle East and things, but there's been a couple interesting things on Twitter that I've seen. One I'm sharing right now. This is kind of showing
oh yeah, I saw that.
Withdrawing of Bitcoin into self-custody. And this period here is blackout that happened. Internet blackout, electricity blackout in Iran. And after that period, and before the period, there's a lot more withdrawals. So, I mean, and I saw this other post about this guy that was like, I still don't understand what the purpose of Bitcoin is. Like, why would anybody need Bitcoin? And then people posting like, if you own land in Iran, if you hold gold in Iran, you cannot take that with you. You cannot take that across the border and, escape this war zone with any sort of wealth. And this is one of the use cases of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think that's a really profound thing, and we're still completely in that old paradigm, legacy paradigm. I think it was, one of our buddies, Alan, Pastor Coin, who wrote the Bible and Bitcoin, and he had a tweet that was just like, how in the world where people are scared about war, and they're de-risking by selling the nationless, permissionless, trustless, money for government currency. That is the very reason we're in these wars and just jumping back on the hamster wheel. And it just, to your guys' point, I mean, it just shows how incredibly early we are. And we've been talking about this for a little while here, but there's a little bit of runway here for Bitcoin, in the sense of like you're stacking goals, the things you've been, people worried about, like, oh, it's going to run away. You're just a little bit of time here. Like we are so incredibly early, and it's the old system having to flush. I had a chat with someone recently, and they were just like, there's a lot of the nation states, all the the legacy players. There's still a lot of juice they understand they can squeeze from this old system. And it's like these guys are radically smart. Us Bitcoiners think we're the smartest people in the world, and we're smart in a different way. But like the old players, the legacy guys, they understand the old system. And it's going to be around for a while, and they're going to squeeze every last drop out of it and get everything it's worth. and then go into it. And again, I think the other thing is just like this red versus blue paradigm. A lot of what I've seen, and I've told you guys this before, and we said it on here, like I spent the last like 3 or 4 days watching the Colonel Douglas McGregors and then the Professor Mearsheims, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and then guys on the left, guys on the right, all this stuff, gold guys, whatever. And no one knows what's going on. The Tucker Carlson's got one thing, it's a radical opinion this way. And then you got, Patrick McDavid and Eric Stackleback who are like, whatever. I mean, I could name 50 people and they all have radically different, there's some spoke on the wheel. And it just makes you realize, oh my gosh, like 99% of what you guys are all bitching about is cured by Bitcoin, it's by this ledger that no one can F with. And it's just the signal and all the noise. So it's like, you want to get caught into it. I was an old political guy 20 years ago, very political, argued with everybody. And I feel myself every day wanting to jump in, like argue with people. But like to your guys' point, like I have to remind myself, like, hey, just like you said, opt out, Jor. Like just, hey, opt out. There's nothing you can do, stack Bitcoin, study Bitcoin.
That's what it is to me. It's like you could spend as much time as you want to on different websites, different platforms, X, Nostr, YouTube, TikTok. It's just never ending. Every time you open up your phone, it's just constantly. And it's by design. They want people invested in it. They want people's energy towards that. That's how they've survived this long, I think. And so it is one of those things where it's just like, it's the message I've been trying to give to people over the last couple of weeks is just focus 100% on making sure you have Bitcoin in self-custody and you have proper security over those private keys, and then do whatever you want. Because I really believe that that's really the only thing that matters at this stage of the game is having Bitcoin in self-custody and having full control and access to that, and having sleeping well at night knowing that it's there, regardless of what blows up where. You open up your Bitcoin at some point in the future, your Bitcoin wallet, you're going to have the exact same amount of sats there, because everything else is just a complete guessing game at this point in terms of what happens next, what Bitcoin's going to do next. I don't know. And I even if I spent 10 hours today trying to figure it out, it still would probably be wrong. So it's like, what's the point?
And I think this also ties in with one thing that we got from a chat here that was saying, what if whales are buying Bitcoin and dumping on exchange to suppress the price? I mean, all those things are kind of like, if you understand what Bitcoin is, you don't worry about short-term price manipulation. You see them as an opportunity. So you see those price manipulations as someone else is actually doing you a favor. Of course, it's like always a hard discussion, because maybe you're in a situation where you're moving to a different apartment, or you need to fix your car, or like your roof, or like whatever happens. And in that moment, the price drops, and it's always like life hits you hardest when you least expected. Yes. And so it is those things. And then we can talk about like having a margin of safety, having like some kind of cash reserve and all of those things. But I think it does not matter if whales are playing those games. B, those games will be less and less effective over the long run. Bitcoin being manipulated is a lot easier at 200 million market cap. It's a lot harder at 2 trillion. And it will be super, super hard at 200, 400 trillion US dollar market cap. We've seen the Elon Musk kind of like effect that he jumped into Bitcoin. It went up like crazy. He said like all the FUD about environmental impact, and it went back down to where it started before him. And so it's like it didn't make any difference. Bitcoin is doing Bitcoin thing. TikTok next block. Yeah, temporarily the price will move to war, because of war, because of some whales, because of BlackRock, because of Sailor. Like in the end of the day, if you have your Bitcoin in self-custody and have a long-term view, all of those things just like disappear in the noise and don't really matter. But I get that it's sometimes hard to focus on in the long run when all the short-term noise is kind of bubbling up.
Yeah, and I think that again, just going back to what we're seeing too. I mean, this is there's so many things that are happening right now, and it's just important to stay grounded. Kind of again like what we're saying, but it's just seeing forest from the trees, really being able to step out, because that's what Bitcoin is at the end of the day. I mean, you don't. Again, coming from someone who was very political in the 2000s, then I was gold and silver guy and real estate guy for 10 years. I mean, like, it is impossible to see what's going on from the Titanic. You can't see it. I mean, I was in the weeds. I was studying, I was political. I was this and that. I'm studying about gold and silver, monetary history, and you can't see it unless you study Bitcoin. And that's where really, to me, it's like, as you guys know, Bitcoin is a 4-letter word to most people. And from the outside, when you haven't seen the wizard behind the curtain, it just looks like, oh, you're a bunch of moon boys. You guys are retarded, and like good luck, And so when you get Bitcoin, you see the wizard behind the curtain finally, whatever that's hour 100 or 1,000 or hour 1 of studying Bitcoin, you realize, oh my gosh, this is, the least interesting aspect is price. This changes my perspective on how I see everything because I'm in the life raft now. Now I can see the Titanic is going down because you're in a protocol off of these government currencies. And so that goes back to what we said in the beginning of like, Alan saying, how are we de-risking by, going back into these government currencies back on this hamster wheel that gave us these problems in the first place and stealing from us through inflation? I mean, it's just truly wild, but you can't see it. You can't see it unless you study Bitcoin.
100%. It's crazy for me because I'm still very obsessed with politics, to be honest, especially local politics, because I have this feeling like we can change something. And every once in a while you have those passionate conversations with like some old student colleague or some old like friend of yours, and you get really passionate about it, and you're like, oh, this is like that, and then at the end of the day you reflect on the evening, you're like, okay, you both shouted at each other and like we didn't get any further. And it's like, it does not make sense to talk about that or like to be passionate about that. It makes more sense to be advocating for a better future and fixing the world from the ground up. So I don't know if you guys have more thoughts on that, but I'm always like, the short-term noise is very distracting and it can be very consuming. And then you need the calm voices. That's why I love listening to like Jeff Booths and like it's really like, oh yeah, like we are still on the same track. Like all those forces are on the way, and all the short term mess is actually happening for a reason and does not really matter.
Yeah, see, it's really interesting because the money aspect of Bitcoin is such a small component to it, and the fiat price is even a very small component of that too. But I see Sam's podcast in here. I can't leave messages, I guess, because I'm not streaming to YouTube today, so I can't reply to the chat there. But we just had I was just on Sam's podcast about 20 minutes ago, right before I hopped on here, and that was one thing that we talked about is the fact of just how small the money component, big picture, is in Bitcoin. And I said I saw this quote somewhere, and I kind of rejiggered it a little bit to my liking, but it was something along the lines of money's a very small part of Bitcoin. The remainder is a different outlook on freedom, a different outlook on record keeping, and a different outlook on measuring things. So the freedom aspect, obviously, you can hold the private keys, you can travel anywhere in the world with 12 words in your head and have access to all your wealth, everything that you've worked for, pretty big deal. The record keeping, though, that's a big one. That's the historical part of Bitcoin. With an immutable ledger now, you can put something onto the blockchain that nobody can delete or change or alter going forward. And I think it was Michael Saylor who said something along the lines of, at some point in the future, everything before Satoshi is going to be considered bullshit, because we had no way to verify that. We had no idea, other than textbooks and he said this, she said this. But if you think about even the library of like Alexandria and how impactful that moment was in time, the fact that all that history, all the records, all the technology, everything they were working on was deleted. Like, just imagine where we would be as a species today if we had access to that. So I think that it doesn't seem like much today because we have access to all this stuff. But like looking into the future, the fact that we now have an immutable ledger that nobody can change and delete, destroy, that has a huge impact on at a societal level, more so than anything else, I think, in Bitcoin.
He brought the quote up when he was on my podcast 1.5 years ago, where he said something along the lines that Satoshi brought the science back to economics, because before Satoshi, economics was a pseudo science, something like that. So it wasn't really something that you scientifically could study, but now it is because of Satoshi. And I think it's really genius, because now we have this measuring stick, we have that science background, this math background, to something that actually you can point towards. And it's not just like imaginary numbers being dealt in a boardroom of people, and it's a different boardroom in every jurisdiction, and we all kind of have a lot of inefficiencies in the system, which is tremendous for me that we still have all those inefficiencies. I mean, if you live in Europe in the right corner, you have within like 20 kilometers free currencies like the Czech Republic, like German, like the euros and all of those things. It's tremendous how many currencies you have to deal with in like one small bucket. If I drive with the car from Austria down to Croatia to Greece, I have to cross through like 3 different currencies in like one day of car rides. It's tremendous, like how crazy it is. I stop at the mouth thing, at the like toll thing, and I have to pay with each time a different currency. I'm like, how did we not fix that system?
It's a way of well, each one of those is it's their own shitcoin, right? Like there's a reason that there's people that benefit from that friction of having those different currencies and forcing you to use their currency to pay the toll booth. Even if you don't stop for gas or snacks or lunch in that country, you still have to exchange currency. There's going to be exchange fees. It's ridiculous. It's so dumb. It's like the dumbest thing in the world. But I mean, back to Brandon's point, and Brandon, you've mentioned this before as well. There's a lot more juice to squeeze out of this system. We're a very small minority that understand the repercussions of having an immutable ledger with a unit that we can ascribe value to and transfer permissionlessly to anywhere in the world globally. It's just completely misunderstood how valuable that is.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest problem we have is the lack of, and we talked about this too, the last couple of years, is like thinking, oh, our job's done. The ETFs have it, Donald Trump, like someone else bigger than us is like talking about it. And I think that's really, and you guys talked about this too with Saylor, and he's even said this too, his fear is that people just don't care at some point about Bitcoin. They don't care about sound money. And then all the economics we have are pseudosciences, which they are, because they're not backed by anything of value. And they're not first principle thinking. They don't have the actual account of measurement, the measuring stick. Nothing is there. So none of it makes sense. But it's this inevitability that Bitcoiners, we think it's inevitable. So we kind of just stop what we're doing and stop learning, stop educating, stop teaching, stop growing. And that's like that's the sickness or disease that can infest. And then all of a sudden people don't know about it. They don't know about it. They're not going to use Bitcoin. And that's, to me, the biggest thing, because it's the software itself might run for 1,000 years somewhere it'll just be running. But if no humans are using it, it's a human system. If humans aren't using it, and they're not talking to AI or whatever, that software, then it's not going to matter at the end of the day. And that's where I think that we have to just be very cognizant that it's there, because there is runway to be had there. It's going to take a little bit. It's not going to be some overnight thing, but it's been only 17 years. We think about like gold and silver and all this stuff. I mean, this took minimum hundreds of years for the globe to figure out gold and silver, probably thousands really. And so for 17 years to us to be this far along because of technology, we do have to zoom out and realize we have time, so if you're thinking about writing a few books, do it, like we need it, like you've got time. You didn't miss the boat. Like you didn't miss your stacking goals. All these things are still in front of us. It might be another decade or two, in a couple of decades, but when you zoom out, that is microscopic in the grand scheme of time, and in microscopic compared to the other monies we've used over time as well.
Yeah, and there's this saying that people have mentioned, like, last year or the year, I guess it might have been 2024 actually now. Larry Fink is the employee of the year for Bitcoin, right? And it's like, and he's the CEO of BlackRock, for those who don't know. And while that might be true, because he's talking to people with large sums of money and he's very influential in Wall Street and stuff, I think if it was up to me, we would have somebody that's really championing the plebs out there, encouraging the continued grassroots adoption of Bitcoin, which has been the case up until now. And there is sort of a feeling, to your point, of inevitability, but it's maybe more so like it's inevitable that institution, like right now, there's conversations in boardrooms, there's conversations with big players with lots of capital talking about Bitcoin right now as we speak too. But that feels more sort of like inevitable. That ball is already rolling. But if we all stop talking about Bitcoin, if we stop sharing about the importance of it, it's not inevitable that my neighbor is going to have a little chunk of Bitcoin, and so on, right? So I think that is way more important than people chalk it up. And I think that when BlackRock came out in support, and Saylor and all these treasury companies and stuff, people really just did feel like, oh, okay, well, my job here is done, right? Like I've been talking about Bitcoin, I've been championing it to other people like me. It's moved on to the next stage. And I really don't think that's the case. I really don't think that's true.
Time to retire.
Yeah.
Could not agree more.
Retire my truck.
Here's an interesting thought. This is a discussion we were having, the argument the other day on BTC Sessions channel a week or so ago. Is Saylor and or Larry Fink, are they top of the funnel for Bitcoin, or are they not? You know, are they actually is that actually bringing people in to the funnel, in the sense of like, these people will someday get self-custody. They will someday get, because like you said, this made me think of it, the Larry Fink thing. Is he sitting there and talking to them about self-custody? You know, is he talking to people about the importance of defunding the government and bringing it back down to its local size, the way it's supposed to be? Of course not. So, but the Saylor Fink argument, are they top of funnel for the Bitcoin we're talking about, or is this the corporate Wall Street Bitcoin that, so there's different kinds of Bitcoin you could be talking about, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think they are to some degree, right? Like they're going to, it really depends on the curiosity of the individual that gets brought in through an instrument like MSTR or through IBIT in their pension, and they see it perform really well, and they think, okay, well, I mean, there's lots of friction within these systems too, right? Like, why am I paying 25 basis points for BlackRock to hold on to my Bitcoin that I can't actually use as Bitcoin? This is a peer-to-peer cash. Well, maybe I'll give it a shot and try it out as that. So then it leads to self-custody and learning to the curious. But I think a lot of people are just not that curious as well. They're just, they'll do whatever their financial advisor says. But I think it could lead to a few more people adopting Bitcoin in a meaningful way.
I think they're both pandering, because Brandon, you mentioned the episode. I actually really enjoyed that episode you did with BTC Sessions and those guys. I was listening to it, and I was kind of thinking, like, even though they are both top of funnel, I think they're both much different. They're catering to much different audiences. If you consider somebody like Larry Fink versus Brian Armstrong, because if you even think about the way they market Bitcoin to their clients, it's much different, right? Like, I feel like BlackRock would be sitting down with very high net worth individuals and showing them the past 10 years performance. They're probably not talking about the self-custody aspect because it's not as important to them. Versus Brian Armstrong Coinbase, you're getting like millennials, Gen Z, gamblers, degenerates, selling you this shitcoin, which eventually leads you to Bitcoin. I really believe that both are positive for Bitcoin. Like, there can be bad. I hate the fact that it seems like they're manipulating, which has been speculated for a while amongst Bitcoiners, but it's again, one of the things that are out of our control. I think that either way, both Fink, Armstrong, however you put it, it leads to Bitcoin. It leads to Bitcoin being more implemented into society, adoption going up, demand for it going up. And so if you can just focus on getting your Bitcoin in self-custody, then none of it really matters, right? Like, it's, unless you're selling it tomorrow, unless you're living 100% on Bitcoin, which I'd say 20 people on the planet are right now, you just got to focus on getting self-custody yourself, and then let it play out. Do what you can, obviously, but that's kind of my take on it. I think they're catering to two different audiences there, but both net positives for Bitcoin overall.
And I think that's the sorry, go ahead. I think there's the point to be made that every interest is a good thing for Bitcoin in the long run. Yeah. I was for 3 years straight against Bitcoin and said it's a scam. Like, from 2017 to 2020, like, this was my opinion. I held stocks. I even had a YouTube channel in German and all that. And I was very strongly against Bitcoin, but it stayed on top of my mind because, like, people kept asking me about it. And I think the best thing that can happen for Bitcoin is people having an opinion on it. And sometimes we make fun of people that have a stupid opinion on Bitcoin, but it's actually a good thing because it leads to conversation. It leads to people talking about it, because then there's like a guy that says like, oh, Bitcoin uses that much energy. Then there might be another guy that says that's a stupid argument, but I think it's too volatile. And then there's another guy that knows better than the both of them and actually gives them like having like the worst thing that can happen, and I think we as content creators, we can definitely relate. The worst thing that can happen is that nobody gives a shit. Like nobody cares
100%.
about Bitcoin whatsoever. As long as people hype it up and hype it down, like we are very good. Like if I see people jumping in that on my YouTube comments that have clearly no clue about Bitcoin, but they feel the need to go on a Bitcoin only YouTube channel that does every single day or just Bitcoin content, they feel the need to jump in there and dunk with like such a long message, like why Bitcoin is doomed and what is like. I think as long as we have that, we're very fine. We need the yin needs the yang, the love needs the hate, like all of those things. And so it all leads to like open interest, and interest is good for Bitcoin. It drives up the volume, it drives up the overall liquidity of the market and overall the liquidity of the network. And so it's a good thing. Like I was very different like 3 years ago when I like first like now. Wow, almost 6 years ago when I first came into Bitcoin, where I was trying to defend it and like was getting upset when someone was saying something bad about it. And I had that professor when I was at university back then who opened in his presentation about his Bitcoin negative speech. And he always opened like that. It was known on the whole university that he takes every opportunity to dunk on Bitcoin. Now in hindsight, I'm like, he is introducing Bitcoin to everyone in the university and makes people talk about that are not interested in Bitcoin at all. And it's not even like, it's not a Bitcoin conversation. He's not even in economics. He's in IT security, a professor. He didn't need to talk about it at all. And so I think my overall point is just like, interest is good. So Larry Fink being forced to talk about it, Saylor, I mean, it's a hard thing to say, but Saylor being forced to adopt it on his balance sheet and then forced to talk about it. I mean, it's not a forced thing, but I think you guys know what I mean. But on all those players being forced to talk about it and having an interest in it, it's a good thing. It's like it leads to more Bitcoin adoption in the end, in the long run.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I love all the responses, because it's funny. Like and I know I've said this before, like I lean toward the revolutionary side, but I think I do agree with you guys. I think I'm 51-49 that, because I've said as well, I think anytime you can get Bitcoin on someone's lips, that's a win. So whether it was Donald Trump or Elon Musk, or it doesn't matter who it is, I think that is a win at the end of the day. So I think I'm on the fence, but I fall toward that side. And that's why I said I came down Jor last week in that argument where like the two guys on one side were fighting and two guys on the other side. And I kind of came down on like I see both sides and kind of just, we ended it with that and just like my thoughts on both sides. But what do you guys think on just volatility in general? Because one of you just mentioned this, but this is the other fascinating part about Bitcoin, where we're going, where, like I just had Stephen Paranod. We talked about this last week, Robin, right? You've had him on multiple times. I had him on last week. And, he's like, yeah, the volatility is going to go way down, but the institutions, you're going to have a lot of this driving bigger prices. Like if it's only a 40% drawdown instead of 70%, well, 40%, but you're going from 200 down to 1.2. That's 800,000 versus only a 60,000 drop we just had, now. So it's going to be wild to see that. But at the same time, what do you guys think about people being drawn in? Because obviously, we get a lot of people like, oh, it's boomer coin. That we haven't hit the peak hysteria of like people are learning in 2017 like what Bitcoin was for the first time, and then now it's kind of like, well, the return's there. I can go into Nvidia. I can go into this NFT, this new scam coin, altcoin. Like, what do you guys think when it comes to volatility going forward and how that will shape adoption and the price? Because if it is less volatile, and it has been, then how does that shape people wanting to come in?
So my thoughts on that are that I think it's going to be very volatile in terms of if you're looking at it from Bitcoin's fiat price. I think it's going to be very volatile forever. Forever. Like I don't think that changes, at least in our lifetime anyways. But kind of my theory on this is that once Bitcoin gets to $1 million, we start measuring it in sats. So it'll be like 1 cent per sat. And we can't really do that until it gets to $1 million. And so when you see sats being priced, I think that honestly will bring a whole new crop of people in there, because that's what I think one of the biggest things that holds people back is the unit bias. They think that Bitcoin's too expensive. Unit is $60,000 because they feel the need to own one whole thing of something, right? They don't know that sats exist. But I think once it gets to 1 million, we won't be pricing it at 1 million. It'll be way too big for a ticker. How many tickers have $1 million item on it, right? So it gets repriced. It gets reframed into sats. And so I think that when it moves from 1 cent per sat to 2 cents per sat, Bitcoin in the background moved from 1 million to 2 million. So like that's massive. If we consider the fact that we just dropped like 40,000, everybody's losing their mind. One sat, 1 cent per 1 sat, 2 cents per 1 sat. That's $1 million swing in the background. And people don't even know that. I just think that we won't even know what the price of Bitcoin is in a decade from now because of that, because we'll be looking at it through a different frame of reference. That's my theory on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's really interesting if we as an asset, or like Bitcoin as an asset, gets from the one side, from a TradFi pros, and saying like, oh, it's so volatile, like it goes up and down 40%, like I cannot handle that, it's too much. But then we get on the other side, like the young 18-year-old traders that say, hey, I want to make a 1,000x in like the weekend, and both of them kind of like spit on us and say like, you're not volatile enough, you're not high return enough, and the other one is saying you're too volatile, you're too high return, like I don't want to have that asset. If we're sitting in the middle of that, we're sitting in a very interesting position, because we attract both pools. We attract both pools that do want to have the high volatility, the traders, the gamblers that want to go 40x short, 40x long, and like go on a Sunday, go on a Monday, like do all that crazy things. But then we also slowly attract the crowd that says like, hey, it's like an interesting asset over the long run. Now we have that weird in between where we don't belong anywhere. And so it's like, are we a tech stock? Are we a commodity? Are we gold? Like we don't really, like Bitcoin creates right now its own small asset class, its own small, like what it actually is. And we talk about that since I started listening to Bitcoin content 6 years ago. We always talked about the decoupling, and like we are getting away from other assets. So far, I don't know if it really has happened. I don't think it's long enough that we can say it's actually decoupled. But I think that's what we will see in the long run, where people on the one hand say, hey, it's not volatile enough, I cannot trade on it enough, it's not going up like 10x tomorrow. Yeah, and the other side is saying like, oh, it's like it goes down 40%, 50% in like 5 months. That's like, then I cannot use this because I cannot gamble my net worth on that. And I'm actually curious what you guys think on that, because I think there's like two characters. There's the character that actually can handle volatility, they can handle those things and has this long-term horizon, and they will just like buy Bitcoin and they are great with that. They have in the next 20 years like a 30%, 25% CAGR, or whatever the number will be. And they will stomach the volatility, and they will make a killing out of it. And I made that calculation. If you go over the next 10 years and you have an asset that has a 10% CAGR every year, and you put 100K in there, you end up with like 260,000. So you make in 10 years from 100K to like 260K. If you go up to 40% CAGR, which is quite some bit, but people don't realize how much of a bit it is. You get from the 100K, not 260K, you get almost 3 million. Wow. And so sacrificing the short-term volatility does make a lot of sense for the long run, because you get you kind of pay for the huge upswing with the short-term volatility. And so I think there is this one character that is fine with the volatility, with the long-term kind of payoff. And then there's the other character that just wants to have like the 5%, 7%, 10% return in their S&P S&P 500 ETF kind of product. And maybe Stretch can like capture that upside, and maybe that can then in that way flow into Bitcoin, and there will be a lot more stretches and a lot more things that can increase the adoption for that kind of character. And I have that weird feeling like 90+% are unfortunately in that category. And most of the real Bitcoiners, the long-term visionaries, they are, I think if we are 5%, I think it's almost too much.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about the stock market, the world does, but the bond market is bigger. The people, there's more money seeking stable, low returns. They actually don't want the volatility, and to me, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's about total return. It's about purchasing power going up. And for me, also, it's partially about ideology as well. So I don't want to be funding debt. I don't want to be funding governments or corporations I don't believe in or anything like that. So I think there'll be an ecosystem that develops around Bitcoin, harvesting the long-term upside potential and paying off a stable return for the people that want that. That's what STRC does, right? And I think that Bitcoin is going to just constantly change until it becomes the unit of account and backs everything. Yeah. So right now, as it is, if it continues kind of performing how it is, hopefully maybe a little bit better, get some more attention for that, it will absorb capital from the traders that seek additional volatility because it's the stable side of their portfolio. When MSTR and Metaplanet and all of these other companies were what all Bitcoiners were talking about, they were saying, well, the part of my portfolio that lets me sleep at night is my Bitcoin, right? So the Bitcoin was their stable coin almost, like not really, but it was like the stable part of their portfolio. Now, a lot of those traders probably end up with less capital over time, but eventually that capital proportionally goes towards Bitcoin. And the bonds or the people seeking lower volatility, they end up purchasing Bitcoin maybe through an intermediary, like, MSTR is purchasing it on their behalf and spitting out a stable return instead of the Bitcoin return. So they end up creating more capital pushed into Bitcoin at a certain point. That's just where Bitcoin is now. But I kind of subscribe more to the idea of it being an S-curve than a stock to flow model or a power law or something like that. I think that there's going to be a point where it's really obvious. There's a boiling point and it's really obvious, and it needs to be massively repriced because it's at the moment where it makes sense to do that based on the rest of the world's understanding of this asset. So with that happen, that's what causes the S-curve adoption or S-curve price appreciation based on that. But when that happens, I have no idea. And even if you just look at Bitcoin without the S-curve, it's like you have to have, or the major upside is like 10 or 12 days a year. And you're not going to time those days, so you have to hold it to see those up days anyway. So it's the same thing. I'm just seeing it over like decades with the S-curve adoption idea that I have. You just have to hold it to see that happen. You're not going to be able to time it. You can't buy in after it goes up. You're not winning then, right? So that's the way I see that.
And it's interesting, we segued into the topic that I think Joe wanted to bring in anyways about adoptions and unconventional ways. How are we getting adopted? I don't know if you wanted to go there already now, but I think maybe it's a good time now for you, Joe.
The secret topic. Well, actually, I wanted to kind of go a little bit deeper into that because I really like what Forrest said there at the end there in terms of looking far out into the future. And I think that that's how you have to look at this thing. I keep saying it, but like think of yourself as like a first generation Bitcoiner, like a first generation farmer. And when you think about the unit bias here, right? So let's just take Canada as an example. And Canada is not very old. Like the town that I'm living in is probably 150 years old, maybe. Like I think that's what most towns in Canada would be celebrating. Like that's pretty fresh. So when people first showed up here, you could probably buy this whole town for like $20. Like it was considered to be like a township, right? And then as more people came to the town, they subdivided into sections. And then as more and more people came, they subdivided it further into quarter sections and half sections, and then lots, because they had to keep changing the unit that you measured it, because it was just, if you tried to buy a township today, what would it even cost? Nobody knows what the cost of a township is. And that's how I see that what the price of Bitcoin is right now, in the sense that in 20 years or 30 years, we won't know what the price of Bitcoin is. Nobody will know what the price of Bitcoin is, because it'll be like the township version of that. Right. So that's how people's perceptions change, is that as there's more demand, you have to keep cutting it, changing the unit that people measure it by, so it's more affordable. People can actually resonate with it and measure it properly. So I think that we're going to go through the Bitcoin phase, to the Satoshi phase, to the Microseed phase. And if you think about how all that lines up, like nobody will know what the price of Bitcoin is at that point, because it'll be similar to a township, and nobody knows what the hell a township's worth nowadays. Like it's not even an option for people. You can't go into realtor.com and try to buy a township of something. So that, I just wanted to kind of explain that, because that's kind of my longer term theory of how Bitcoin plays out. As more and more people adopt Bitcoin, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to have to keep changing the unit so it's people can resonate with the actual value of it.
Doesn't that get rid of the scarcity of Bitcoin though? Like you can just feed the world with one pizza kind of idea, just by cutting more slices.
It's funny because a lot of people actually, what do you guys think the percentage of the population that actually thinks that would be the case? Like, I think it's actually surprisingly high.
Yeah, but it's also somebody that just has clearly never thought about it. It can't be somebody, you can't think about it and have somebody be like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense, and continue to think that way. Like, I mean, there's very few that with evidence, I think, would continue to think that way, unless they have an agenda to push.
Yeah. What would a reasonable amount be? Like 50-50? More? Like, I feel like there's actual economics professors with degrees, years of schooling, who really think that if you change the unit that you're measuring it by, it actually increases the supply of that asset. I really think that we'd be the minority in the world who, even once shown that, subscribe to and understand what that means. Like it's just such a foreign concept. And that's the whole thing to Bitcoin to me, is like, it's literally like speaking a different language to people.
Yeah,
that's how I think educators should be thinking about it, because you can't learn a language by watching a 30-minute video or taking a 2-week course. Like, this is something that you change over years. And it's the same kind of thing in Bitcoin. It's just so different than what we're used to.
Bitcoin, Bitcoin is another language. Bitcoin is another language. You have to, and you have to try to explain it through analogies, comparing it to things that people might understand. And these analogies are fundamentally flawed or incomplete. It's like explaining a circle by only being able to draw straight lines. You're going to get close, but you're never going to get there unless you connect like just so many dots that you can't see the pixels anymore, right? The digital gold only makes sense in the issuance, but people subscribe it to the way Bitcoin's price should be. And it's just, it falls apart there, all that kind of stuff.
It's hard even on the receiving end too, right? Like, it's hard to explain it, but it's also hard on the receiving end because your ego has to accept it. I mean, we saw the George Grobel guy or Noble guy, whoever that guy that was the other day, the macro dude, who was like, a huge long post on Twitter about how Bitcoiners, you're morons, like it's absolutely wrecked, this is a speculation, and he was just getting torched, right, by every Bitcoiner, and he was just blocking everyone. And he ended up blocking me. I think I've been blocked like 5 people in 17 years of being on Twitter. And it's just, I just says my ego, and like the Titanic meme. And he was like, I know more than you, or I've forgotten more than you've ever known. And then he blocked me. I was like, okay. So it's just like the hubris, where like a lot of people, like a Peter Schiff, these people that are angry that they missed it. So you can, even if you crush it and you have a grand slam analogy, the person has to be open to humbling themselves and realizing, hey, my life has been a lie. Yes, you've lived your life. That part was the physical part was real, but everything, the incentives made you, or probably forced you to make a lot of decisions in your life that were untrue. This going back to the pseudoscience, so I'm going to get in debt. I'm going to go to school, get a good job, get up my 529, my 401k, my RSSP, my superannuation, whatever the hell it is. All these things were lies. And that's the thing that like people look back and their mind breaks. And so you have to, you know, we could go down that road of how the mind breaking, right? But it's like, you have to not only teach it well, but the person has to be able to receive it. The humility ego test. It's wild.
And I think there's something I think there's two different characters. Again, there's like the character that has and legacy lens, that's how I call it, on where he goes in and looks at Bitcoin and he learned the fiat system, the in and out of it for his whole life. He really has a very clear class of like looking at things. And if you only existed in a Keynesian economics field of fiat science, it's very hard for you to see Bitcoin. You have been told that all your life, and they really have that kind of like narrow view. And for them, I can understand. Like those are sometimes very smart people. I don't want to even dunk on them, because they are just like, they did all the right things with the information that are in front of them. They might made the mistake that not going out further on the information course of like searching in alternative sources some kind of information. But then there's also just a lot of people that have not thought about anything at all and just like living their life very dull. I'm sometimes amazed by how less of information there is out there. If people I'm rarely at parties. I'm a very introverted person. I'm not going out a lot. Yes, I have a beer thing, but I haven't drinking beer in like 6 years. I'm only drinking water out of that. And if I'm at a party of some sort at some point, there's people coming up to me like, oh, like, what are you doing? And then I'm always like juggling my options what I will say. Am I a podcaster? Am I a Bitcoiner? Am I an entrepreneur doing something in IT security, just to like not having those conversations. But I really like to just go in there. Yeah, I'm shielding Bitcoin. I'm a Bitcoin salesman, like just like in your face. Like that's what I am.
You're a propagandist.
And just I'm
a context shifter. Yeah, exactly.
I'm a context shifter. And so if I do that, I get a lot of stupid opinions on Bitcoin back. And it's like really interesting, because you see those opinions on Twitter and the back of your mind is like, yeah, that's just like some bot. Like then it's like inorganic, like there's some bot farm trying to dunk on Bitcoin. But I see those people in real life and they're actually saying those things. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like those people actually exist. And so that's what I wanted to say with that, because it's, I think we are in a very small bubble, and I'm very thankful to be in this bubble. Like I'm very thankful to be in a room full of people that are all very disagreeable. I talked with Robert Breedlove actually on my podcast recently on that if you have a topic where there are so many disagreeable people in one room and they all agree on one thing, which is Bitcoin, it's a very high signal thing. The same thing with other topics in the Bitcoin space. But yeah, I think we have to open our eyes to the stupidity that sometimes is out there in the world.
It's stupidity for one, but it's also just like, I keep going back to it, but it's like a different language. And so if someone's speaking Spanish to me and I didn't know what they were saying, I'm not stupid. I just haven't taken the time to learn Spanish. Right. And I think that, kind of to Brandon's point there, I really think that even if I explained the analogy of like farmland compared to Bitcoin, people might be able to like understand what I'm saying, but they probably won't believe me because they haven't taken the time to actually understand why that's going to play out the way it does, in the sense of the growing demand, the absolute scarcity, the difficulty adjustment, the physical energy being brought into the digital world. There's just 1,000 things to know before you can get to the point of believing me that that's what's going to happen. And so when you're having conversations with people who aren't there yet, it's literally like speaking a different language to somebody. And I've had that myself. Like I remember about 6 months ago, I was sitting at a bar at like 1:30. I had too many beers, too many drinks. It was after a football game, I think, in Saskatchewan. And I was sitting at a table with a guy, and he was talking to me about Bitcoin. I think I was wearing a Bitcoin hat or Bitcoin, whatever. And he was just like, I was explaining it as what I thought the best I could, even after, X amount of beers. But he just was not receptive to at all. And I finally said, like, man, you and me are on different planets right now. And it's true. Like I was speaking a different language than what he was hearing. You know what I mean? Like it's is just such a big disconnect there.
100%.
I find people don't care. That's the biggest thing I find. And when I bring this stuff up, they might ask, "Oh, you're into Bitcoin? Oh yeah, I heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever." And then it's like, "Yeah, I'm Bitcoin only." And they, "Oh yeah, so how was the game last night?" Right? It's like, it's literally that meme,
You might as well talk religion at that point. Yeah. I mean, it's just like it, but it's like, how does a frog know he's wet if he's been in the water his whole life? Right. So it goes back to the language. You're speaking another language. It's like, and that's where the toxic maximalism of Bitcoiners is good. It's like the memes, right? Memes cut both ways. Like memes are great for people getting into Bitcoin, but once you're in Bitcoin, a lot of the memes kind of go away in the sense of like, well, I do need to spend some on my Bitcoin because like I got to live, or like I got to do things. But it's great when someone's learning Bitcoin, and that's where we have to be careful. Some of it, and like the toxic maximalism is great for a lot of these like front end, the normies, like whatever, or like it's consensus stuff, and like, hey, we got to like make sure we're strict or whatever it is, but the culture, like the empathy that Bitcoiners need at times, we miss it. We miss the mark on this sometimes. We all do, where we're not empathetic. It's like we saw behind the curtain, but we forget that no one else has yet. So like people look at us and like, you guys are fucking psychopaths. Like, are you a criminal? Like, why don't you trust the existing system? Like, what do you mean? Like my bank account still works. And so like, they just don't see it. And it's like, again, if the frog's been in the water, or where the fish has been in the water, how does he know he's wet? And so you have like, look, just think of culture, like it's all about the Benjamins, the greenback, right? Like all these different things over time, your culture is just ingratiated with this, like growing up in that thing. And if you're telling me that all of a sudden that's all a lie, and that was, imagine like being told that. And that's where, we keep coming back to this whole thing in these different areas, which I think is great, because this is where we are. And I think we're kind of ending the early adopter visionary INTJ phase, that type of thing, right? These first 15 to 20 years. And we're entering like the pain phase, where I think then there's like a max pain phase, right? Where like we're saying, who's the next cadre of people that come in? Yeah. It's probably the people that start feeling pain all over the world. Then there's gonna be a max pain phase. And then there's gonna be like probably another like laggard phase, where it's like, okay, you're just getting scooped off the heap and thrown in now. So like, that's we're crossing that chasm. Next phase, boys. Phase transition.
Think about it. I mean, like if you think about somebody who's 50, 60, 70 years old right now, they have 50 years of being in the water, right? Without knowing they're in the water. Yeah. And they're actually the ones who have the majority of the wealth. And so those are the people that actually move the needle here. Somebody who's working a 9-to-5 job and has $100 to throw into Bitcoin at the end of the week is great, but it's not moving the needle in our direction. And it's actually hilarious you said that, Brandon, because again, I was talking to Sam right before this, and he actually used that exact analogy of the chasm in
That's too funny.
The S curve from moving from early adopters into the mainstream and what that's going to take to get there. And it was
Forrest made me think of that earlier. Yeah, Forrest made me actually think of that. That's why, that's too funny.
So anyways, the example that he talked about was Nokia and Apple, and basically how Nokia had the whole market share. They had everything. They just didn't know how to bring it to the mainstream. And that's when Apple swept in there and said, okay, we got it. And Apple, of course, became what Apple is now. But I kind of see the same thing happening in Bitcoin over these next few years, in the sense of, I think that Apple's been strategically out of Bitcoin up until now because they've been waiting to see what happens. And I think that Apple's going to come out with a product or something that's going to bring Bitcoin to the mainstream. And there's going to be a lot of people using Bitcoin without even knowing that they're using Bitcoin. And that's where it crosses the S curve. That's where it crosses the chasm. Yeah. And Apple's been famous for that, in the sense of they're never the first to adopt something. They just wait, let it happen, let them basically get shot. The first one through the door gets shot. Mm-hmm. And then Apple swoops in and makes it very easy for the average person to understand. And I think that's a very viable next step for Bitcoin. And Tim Apple himself has said that he's a Bitcoiner. That was about 4 years ago.
What do you think would be some kind of like Apple move into Bitcoin? Would it be like on a medium of exchange side of like you can pay things with your Bitcoin and like there's like a hot wallet natively on your iPhone or something?
I think that would make the most sense, where again, people don't need to learn how to run a Lightning node. They don't need to keep track of 12 words. They can just essentially hold Bitcoin native in their device, because that's what this is. This is a private key. Anytime you're using a wallet on your phone, the phone is the private key. So why wouldn't it make sense for Apple to just fully encrypt that in there versus reliant on a third-party app to do that for you?
Yeah, that's where. I couldn't agree more. That's where I think we're headed to.
Because I think back to because right now I think we're in the store of value phase. I think now we're still quite some time away from like massive Bitcoin adoption in the medium exchange side of things. Like even hardcore Bitcoiners sometimes don't use it as a medium exchange. Like I do get paid like almost every week now from some kind of partner, some kind of sponsor, something like that in Bitcoin, and I do pay quite some time actually in Bitcoin. And so we do have the medium exchange side of things, but I think it's too early for that. I think right now for the store of value side, that's why I was like curious what you think about the Apple side of things, because I think Apple integrating Bitcoin for medium exchange side of things wouldn't do a lot for the store of value of things outside of it being legitimized in people's eye, and maybe some people buy it. And I was thinking maybe Stretch, something like that, is a more interesting way for the TradFi community, for the boomer in a retirement account wanting to have some fixed income, where they get the rating, the credit rating from the institutions that they all know, the BlackRock approval, it's in their app, and they can just like, oh yeah, instead of like an 8% yield, I get an 11% yield, and it's this like Stretch product. They're doing some fancy shit with Bitcoin, but I don't care because there is some guarantee of a rating agency that I get my income. And they don't care about Bitcoin. They don't care at all what they're doing. They just want the 11% yield on a product instead of the 8% yield on a product.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's definitely possible, and I do agree in the sense that if Apple came out tomorrow and said, "Okay, we're adding Bitcoin payments to every smartphone," kind of the point that Sam raised when I was talking to him is he said people are already used to tapping, people are already used to using their phone for everything, so it won't be a learning curve for them actually at all. It'll just be, and I think at that point it becomes if it's that easy to do, if it's that easy to hold, I think that people will say, okay, this currency over here, they print every day. This currency over here, they don't print. I can probably estimate at this point, once there's this level of adoption, volatility's come down, you can kind of see what's going to happen there. And I think it's actually a very effective way to orange pill people is just send them some sats on Lightning and leave it for a couple of years. And they'll say, holy shit, this $5 turned into $8 and then $10. And then they kind of see the value of it in that sense. But I think also too, in terms of businesses accepting Bitcoin, I think Forrest and I both agree in the sense that that's going to be the next driver from store of value to medium exchange. Once people who actually provide value to the world in the form of products and services, once they demand to be paid in Bitcoin, if people want to buy their products and services, they're going to have to find a way to pay them in Bitcoin. I think Apple easily facilitates that, but also from a business perspective, and like Jack Dorsey and Square, the fact that they're now allowing businesses to accept whatever the customer wants to pay in, and they can hold a portion of that in whatever amount, cash versus Bitcoin. I think this is just the very early stages of like businesses starting to have a Bitcoin reserve, a Bitcoin treasury, small businesses all around the world. And I think that these factors combined are going to be kind of the next driver of it to me.
Well, Saifedean has this sort of thesis where what pushes Bitcoin beyond where it is now is just an increased percentage of your account being Bitcoin, just more Bitcoin in your portfolio, more Bitcoin savings, essentially, for more people. And it's a sort of a very simple metric. It's something that, well, you can just say, well, obviously that's sort of a no-brainer, right? But it sort of makes it more meaningful to people when they have more of it, right? So it becomes more important. It becomes, okay, how do I spend this? What's the tax implication of that? Okay, well, the tax laws are unfair. I'm going to vote for people that are going to change. Like it's sort of a knock-on domino effect. If you already have Bitcoin, it becomes more important to you. And I think actually, like, it'd be hard for it's hard for me. Like I'm not an engineer. I don't work at Apple, so it's hard for me to imagine what Apple could do that would really push that forward. But Square and Block is a company that's, up in the S&P 500. It's a massive company. They've developed payment systems. They've developed apps that are financial apps, and they are developing novel Bitcoin implementation and products. By implementing it into their Square terminals, I mean, I still think that's probably the biggest thing that happened last year.
Maybe
we still haven't really.
I was
What's
just going
that?
to say maybe Square's the apple in this
Yeah.
consideration. Then we haven't really seen that play out yet. That's definitely
Yeah.
possible.
It is possible, and that's what I was going to say too. Is just that we haven't seen it play out yet. It's still the domino, like the little dominoes falling, and it's just starting to move other ones potentially behind the scenes and without observable sort of evidence until it is obvious. And there, I don't talk that much about the BitKey, but it's also very novel as a hardware wallet, and there's people that want that type of hardware wallet, and that's something that Block created, whereas a lot of the other sort of Bitcoin centered cypherpunk founded Bitcoin wallets are, in my opinion, what I do promote and what I do use personally. I find them better, but I see why the general public is off put by the 12 words and the passphrase or the multi-sig, and Block just simplifies it, right? And it's for a different audience, and that's sort of more of like an Apple type thing. So I mean, there's secure elements in phones already. If Apple implemented a secure element with a vault in there with their own software wallet, could that be big? I think so. That's something maybe that could happen. I don't know, but I definitely see that what Block did, as Block becomes, I mean, they just fired 40% of their employees or something like that.
They hold a lot of Bitcoin too, don't they? Like they're buying every month or every quarter.
A certain percentage of all of their Bitcoin endeavors goes towards buying Bitcoin. And they also have the proto mining rigs, which are very modular and replaceable and sort of innovative in a degree there, a little bit more of a premium. And I don't know how much adoption there is of that. But anyway, again, just novel Bitcoin ideas and innovation within that space from a company that's more within their sort of traditional tech companies. So I see them as maybe becoming the Apple of Bitcoin if Apple doesn't adopt it, right? Like,
and they're connected to businesses all around the world, like directly. Their devices are already in their hands pretty much for the most part.
Yeah. Big network.
I think Apple will 100% adopt it because they really want to get into this banking sector. They want to get into the transactions. They see what's going on. I mean, they have the Apple Card, they have the Apple Pay thing, they have credit on the Apple, they have all those things. And imagine, and I think it probably would be technical so easy for them to do something like that. Imagine they have a 3 out of 2 multisig enabled natively on all the Apple devices. If you have a MacBook, an iPad, an iPhone, an Apple Watch, and you need like 2 out of those 4 to sign a transaction, would be probably not even that bad of a setup for like a hot wallet. I wouldn't store my life savings on it, but having like 5%, having like a few percent or like just like what you have in a wallet or generally on there would be a cool solution. Like imagine you have like the Apple Wallet in your phone and you can pay from a multi-sig device on like a Starbucks thing with Apple Wallet, just like holding the things together and just like paying, and only those 2 things together can pay. Like there's a lot of interesting avenues that Apple could go down that we're not even considering now. But I do think they will do it the Apple way. They will do it once it's like clear path. Like think about how they opted in with the wireless headphones. They went into the game so late. There was already so many wireless headphones out there. And then they came in and they dominated the space. The same with the smartwatch. There were so many other providers that had smartwatches before, and not small providers. Samsung did it before Apple. And once they came in, they dominated the smartwatch game. And so I don't expect them to come in early. Not at all. Like I expect them to come in the late game, and I expect them to like really knock out on the customer experience, on like the super easy to use, come in our ecosystem. It's super easy, super secure, super all of those things. And so that's a thing more likely that Apple innovates or like they're really good in taking innovation that is already there, making it mainstream. That's what they are kind of doing.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it right now. They're doing this exact same thing with AI. They've done nothing with AI. Siri's been an absolutely atrocious assistant for years, and they didn't try to compete with Meta and Google or anything. They're just going to partner with Google on this now that the chips have fallen as much as they've needed to, and they're going to implement and do a really good partnership and all this kind of stuff to fix what I think is completely broken, which is their Siri assistant. And they're not first moving, and they're just going to move with size, with the network that they have, and be able to dominate the niche that they have, which is an important financial class of like socioeconomic type people, I would say. So I think they run the same playbook. They're going to do it eventually with Bitcoin. What it'll look like might change because Bitcoin will develop and more novel ideas will surround itself around Bitcoin and what Apple could do with that.
And the same way I think will be happening with Bitcoin on balance sheet. I don't expect Apple to be one of the first players in that regard from the Microsofts and Facebooks and Googles of the world. I think they will be probably they will be doing it once it's obvious, once it's very obvious for a big CFO. And it's not a bad approach. Like if you think about it, it's actually a quite low time preference approach that Apple is taking. They're kind of seeing where the innovation is falling, and they know that they are the big player, and they're like moving in a nice way. It's not the best approach if you want to really innovate and be cutting edge, but also that's not the audience of Apple.
Yeah, they don't need to anymore.
Apple audience wants like a product that just fucking works, like, that does a job and super easy to use, and so they have that kind of approach, and so I would be, and that's why I keep bringing it up. Like I would be super surprised if Apple announces as the first major player a major Bitcoin buy. Like if they announce it before Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Meta, like before all those companies, I would be highly surprised. And yes, I know Tesla already has Bitcoin, but I don't count that too much.
Yeah. Selfishly, I'm going to talk about this war thing really quick because I brought it up, I know, in our chat, and we've had a couple of these comments about it. And then I think, Forrest, you had answered somebody's, but I think that the simple thing is that it's, when you have value held in Bitcoin or in money instead of all these other assets, like looking at silver, what's happened to silver, such a great example of when people are screaming utility all the time, whether it's altcoins or gold and silver, and that's the only thing they have to go off of, forgetting, number one, that Bitcoin actually has utility, but that's not how it's monetized through its utility, that you actually have this world where when the prices of silver goes up, well, guess what? Now your Tomahawk cruise missiles cost more. Now your dentistry costs more. All these things, and then whatever it is, all these daily goods you use in your life, now they get expensive. So now you have two options. You either pay way more for your daily life, or they just aren't made anymore. And then now you really suffer, and your standard of living goes down. So it's like the comedy of errors that goes on when you choose physical tokens to be a global monetary standard. So that's probably the number one thing, where you have a digital ledger taking that wealth instead of all these utilities or all these the metals, all these different things in life. So then now when people are saying, oh, I'm going to war because of oil or whatever it is, yes, do you still need the physical thing in life? Yes, of course. But now it's disincentivized it to a point where these things don't cost nearly as much. So now I can do it where I live. I can actually get oil out of the ground, or I can do other things around me because now it makes sense to do it where I am instead of trying to go around the world and beat people over the head. And then that brings up the second point of you can't take Bitcoin from someone. So going over around the world, you can't beat someone over the head and take their Bitcoin because it's on their seed plate or it's in their head or whatever. So again, it incentivizes people to not do that. And then I think, Forrest, maybe this is what you would answer. Someone said in the chat of you can't print Bitcoin. And so No Name had said, Americans would have done this. I think No Name was right that in 2003, I think a lot of people would have given their Bitcoin over, to be totally honest. They would have said, oh yeah, hell yeah, sign me up. Here's my Bitcoin. Here, government, go do what you need to do. But that is radically different than it is now.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, you look at the stats of people, what people are thinking is going on right now, and people are not happy in America. There's a lot of people unhappy. A lot of people voted for Donald Trump. They're like, what are you doing right now, man? Like, this is not what we voted for. We're not going to argue about whether it's right or wrong, but like, he said one thing and now we're doing another thing type of thing. I digress, but now it's very different. So it goes back to now government they can't print, so they have to ask you for it. They can't inflate it away and steal it from you, steal your time and energy, put you on a hamster wheel, make you a human battery, and then don't ask you. They have to do the ask. They have to come to you and say, hey, we need permission to go to war from you, and we need your money, by the way. People aren't going to do that anymore. That ship has sailed. We're too global now, and people have friends all over the world. People have friends in Iran. People have friends in Sweden. Where Robin is. I'm in America. Like, we've got friends all over the world. So why would I want to see war anywhere? Like, we have technology has demonetized war to a point where it's going to be very unprofitable going forward to continue doing these wars, and Bitcoin is going to be a large part of that. Anyway, thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, there's three ways to fund anything with the government. One of them is raising debt. The debt leads to one of the other ones, which is a debasement of the currency. But so that's so debt, money printing, and raising taxes. And on a Bitcoin standard or a hard money standard, raising debt ruins a nation, and it's a very unpopular thing to do. It sort of has to be done secretly. You can look into the history of England raised a bunch of debt to finance. I can't remember if it was World War I or World War II, but then it was actually just privately bought by the bank through somebody else. So it was money printing, sort of hidden, which is what blatantly happens now, basically, with debt creation, or raising taxes, which is incredibly unpopular as well, which is the idea of, like, some people would be okay with that if it was a just war, if they believed in the cause of the war. So wars are going to become the only wars that will be fought on a hard money standard is wars that need to be fought, or that a nation really believes in, because there's a real cost of it. And it's really simple, right? An army costs money to fund. If you're not able to fund them with money, they're less motivated to fight, and a large section of those people will not want to fight at all. And so you cannot fight as much of a battle. It's really that simple. It's just, you're taking one of the arms of funding away, and the other ones are rather unpopular.
But I mean, if you're in a situation, I agree with everything you guys are saying right now. I think that if you really play this out and say, okay, well, what would be a situation where I would give up my Bitcoin to protect my house, right? So I think that we're going to go very decentralized, very local, but that would be a situation where it makes sense. If there's a neighboring tribe, again, we're kind of looking out in the future here, who knows what plays out. But if there's a neighboring tribe and they're coming to take our stuff here, I might say, okay, well, I'll give you some Bitcoin to go buy this gun so we can protect our thing here. But like some war that's happening overseas that I have to pay for and fund just doesn't make any sense. And I love, Brandon, how you said there, they have to ask permission. That's where it ends.
Yeah.
Because for most people, it's going to be like, are you kidding me? There's no chance in hell I'm giving you my Bitcoin to go bomb this daycare and wherever, right? It's like, it just doesn't even make sense.
And it's a de facto vote, right? It's voting with your wallet. Like they're supposed to ask through the Constitution. They're supposed to have a vote on it, literally. But then also, oh yeah, by the way, we need your money.
They found ways around that though, right? Like that's the whole thing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's what's huge. And someone mentioned wrench attacks too. I take umbrage with that just because I believe wrench attacks are a straw man argument. This is why it's so important to have the education on Bitcoin and more people get the hardest money on earth, because then it spreads the risk of wrench attacks. And there's signal in that as well. Wrench attacks exist because someone realizes, hey, that's the strongest money on earth. I want to go get that guy. And that's only an issue right now when Bitcoin is, we'll call it in fewer hands than it should be, right? And you're flaunting it, or you're doing, whatever, and maybe it's not custodied properly or whatever it is. Those are straw man arguments that when in a society, when we are on a Bitcoin standard and you're accounting for things in Bitcoin, yes, are humans fallible? You're going to have, like you said, you're going to have some war here and there. You're going to have things happen. People will still kill each other. It's not going to fix everything, but it disincentivizes vast majority of what we're seeing going on. It makes it very costly to do it. So not saying it's not going to happen. It just makes it very costly and dumb to do those things. So it's going to be relegated to a much, much smaller portion of society. And that's where, again, I think a lot of like crossing this chasm and this phase transition and looking at things coming in the coming years is how a lot of people, it's like two ships passing in the night, is why a lot of people don't get Bitcoin. Like a lot of this talk we've had today is like, how come people don't understand it? Well, it's because, our minds generally think probably 5 years, 10 years out minimum. That's the four of us, a lot of people in the chat, we think in those terms. The average person is thinking about like, what the hell am I doing today? What am I doing this weekend? And that's where like the different language comes in. We can start going down that road. So anyway, it's fascinating.
I think I always hated that argument of like Bitcoiners will be, because Bitcoin is the best asset for protecting your physicality, because you can have so many different ways of holding your Bitcoin and the attacker has no way of knowing what you really do. And so you can literally lock up most of your wealth in like a time lock, and like they just can't get to it. You can have different kind of wallets. Maybe you have an actual wallet and like a wallet that you can show, and then like they get away with like 1% of your wealth. You have a tremendous amount of opportunities and ways to protect yourself. So I think this is only because there's an education gap. And so long term, I think people want to rob people that have physical gold at home, that have access to liquidity, have access to money directly. But having Bitcoin is a whole different ball game. It's the leverage is all on the person that custodies it. Like he literally has all the leverage in that moment, and you can set yourself up in a way. And I think Larry Lepar actually said, I don't remember, I think it was on my podcast or maybe on Bitcoin Prague last year, where you have different kind of like protection layers for that. So you can do a lot of different things to prevent those things from happening to you, or if those things are happening to you, to be in the best possible position to negotiate, because they most likely don't want to kill you. And so you then have all the cards and all the leverage. Yeah, you might there is definitely a situation also like where it gets a lot more dark and where there's like things really happening. But in most cases, they want to score money and they don't want to add murder to their charges. and so it's all about like having the best asset where you have the most amount of leverage. And this is Bitcoin. So I really do almost hate that argument of, oh, you get wrench attacked with Bitcoin. You can get wrench attacked with every single asset on planet Earth. And Bitcoin is the best one to protect against that if you know what you're doing.
IRS does the wrench attacks all the time here in America. I mean, like you're getting stolen from on the hamster wheel every single day. It's like that to me. Like someone brought up, I don't know where it was, but they were talking about Caribou and the Canadian trucker, convoy, and it was some Monero guy, and he was like, well, censoring can be anywhere. Like they forced him to give the private, his private key. I'm like, the system is the system. Like we can't keep taking we're straw manning things to keep ourselves back in this government run system where they don't have to ask permission to steal from you all the time and wrench attack you every single day, all day long without your permission. That's the thing. I can't understand that. And I can't sit here idly by and let that happen to everyone in the world. Like it's not that I'm going to be the one to change it, but it's just like, that's why we're here at the end of the day. It's a new system that is light years ahead of anything we've ever had as human beings. And so like, I think we should give us a chance. The Titanic's going down. I got to get in the life raft.
It's by far the best option for protecting your personal wealth. And that's exactly it, is just, okay, so there's been cases where people have not taken responsibility or something's gone wrong and they've lost their wealth that's held in Bitcoin. Okay, does that mean that it's still not the best option? No. all other options of holding wealth are inferior. It's really that simple. So it's a good topic to talk about because it does.
It's great.
It does bring up all these ideas of, okay, well, what is the proper setup? Do I need to have a multi-sig? multi-jurisdictional,
Yeah.
multi-party, seed phrase, passphrase, seed phrase. Like, what is the best option? It gets into the technical side of the personal responsibility of self-custody. And most people are just not going to do it like properly, you know, to fully secure themselves against any sort of vulnerability, which is, you know, the case. But that's the case with anything else. If you have stocks on a brokerage, if you have money in a bank, you are also not protecting that wealth either, because you're just trusting somebody else to do that for you. And all of those can be freezed at any moment if you all of a sudden, for something you previously did, get deemed a liability by the nation that you're in, right? It's incredibly vulnerable, that wealth as well.
And it's still up to that person too. I go back to the Caribou thing where it's like when you give something to Give, Send, Go or these third parties, then they have the ultimate say. Caribou, God love him, still had the say. He's the one that gave it up. You have the autonomy, whether you're getting tortured or not. These are very real talks to have. So it brings up these great points, but it's, you still have the ability, whether through coercion or not, in order to do this. And then you go aside from that, another level, there's lightning, Ben, Parent has given, different talks about this over the last couple of years. People can go look, I think it was a Peter McCormick show, the What Bitcoin Did version before Danny started doing it. And, he talks about this, like the mistakes I made, whether it's, lightning, I don't know if Fetty was even available at that time, but like, there's different ways to go about this now that are private. There are different ways to go about these things where it's like, you're not going to know. They're not going to know. This goes back to the sovereign individual, and the state is not going to know. They cannot keep up with this long-term. In the short term, they're trying, they're doing their darndest, but it's not going to work long-term for them. We're not sending the best to government, and they're not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah, that's kind of my, and sorry, boys, I kind of took us on a couple different things here, but I want to get back to the secret topic before we go. Do you guys have like a timeline? Like, do you have?
I'm probably good for another 10
15,
minutes,
20 minutes.
15,
I
yeah.
was thinking 10 for myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could drop off whenever. I think somebody left. I think Forrest left early last time. But anyways, I think that's kind of what we're going through right now is that people, let's call them criminals, people who steal from other people. I think they still believe that Bitcoin is something that can be taken from somebody, and we've seen instances of that. But I do think that once it's kind of understood by more people, including criminals, they're not even going to bother with it. Because again, like Forrest said there, you can have your keys in different parts of the world. And it's like, why would you waste your time coming to my house when you know that you're not going to be able to get my Bitcoin no matter what, right? And so I think that that's where people will eventually get to, especially Bitcoiners here today. It'll be five years of kind of on edge, something could happen, who knows, but it's still going to be, I think people are still going to lean more towards like social engineering attacks versus actually coming to your physical house.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to,
you're putting yourself in danger then. Yeah.
Exactly.
The attacker. Yeah,
exactly. And it's not going to, nobody in Indonesia is going to fly over here to come to my house and hope maybe that I have a private key sitting here. Where they're going to figure out that obviously if you have significant amounts of Bitcoin, you have it spread out, there's nothing that you can do from your house. So it's just going to be a complete waste of time. It's going to totally reduce the incentive for violence against Bitcoiners. But it's going to take time.
Unless it's a government cartel, then yes. I mean, again, these things will happen. But this is all part of the process of this being demonetized and taken down. We can't say, hey, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to wait for the government to change. Like, we got to go through a phase transition. And yes, there's going to be unrest that happens, unfortunately. Pray it doesn't, but yeah.
So anyways, boys, I want to switch gears here a little bit because I gave you guys this secret topic, which is in the title today. And we've talked for an hour and 20 minutes before bringing this up, which is pretty typical. But, the idea with this channel, I think from my perspective anyways, and you guys can give your thoughts on this, but it's like the mastermind. What does a mastermind mean? It means just having open conversation, having debates, presenting ideas to each other, and almost like open sourcing our opinions and ideas for the world. So if I say something on here, somebody else in a different part of the world can take that idea and run with it. I want to open source conversation and ideas. And one of the ideas that I've had recently here was actually inspired by Brandon. I think it was your live stream the other day where you said we need to start thinking a little bit differently here. We're just kind of going through the motions of like trying to explain Bitcoin to people. But I think we need a different approach in the sense of like almost like a guerrilla warfare in a way. Like if you think about how guerrilla warfare works and how unique the tactics are, they're just like where somebody doesn't even see it coming almost. And so an idea that I had was if you think about Bitcoin books and how much of an impact that's had on so many Bitcoiners, and I got a book here called Simple Bitcoin Savings. It's actually a guy named Matt Willis. He's a guy that I know, and he wrote this book. And there's been several people reach out to me and say, you know, this book actually had a pretty big impact. I gave it to somebody and they asked me to buy Bitcoin. And so kind of as I was thinking through this and how I got into Bitcoin, it's like nobody told me to come to Bitcoin. Nobody gave me a book and said, here, read this, find Bitcoin. Nobody sent me a video and said, hey, watch this. You're going to learn Bitcoin. People kind of get there on their own. That's what I've noticed is people get to Bitcoin when they have an open mind, when they're ready for it. And so my idea here was to kind of take something like this, whether it's this book or something similar, or, you know, between the 5 of us plus the community here, we come up with this short book, similar size of this, very easy to read, very easy to digest, and actually just start placing it in, you know, those mail, or not the mailboxes, but the Bitcoin, or not the book,
the free
things.
libraries,
Yeah.
And basically just send books out to a bunch of Bitcoiners, and that's kind of their job, is to go find those little libraries there and just put the book in there and maybe leave a note and say, if you found this book, email this and we'll send you some Bitcoin, or we all sign it or something like that. And I just like that idea because yes, there might be 10 or 20 people that open up that window looking for a book, see the Bitcoin book and just bypass it. But there's going to be 1 or 2 people there who are ready to learn about it. And nobody gave it to them. Nobody forced it on them. They totally did it for free. They opened it up. They pulled out the book, and that changed them. That changed their life. That changed their direction going forward. And who knows how many people they'll touch in the future in terms of Bitcoin. So I just thought that was such a unique idea and something that actually wouldn't be that expensive. It wouldn't be that difficult to like roll out. So I just wanted to, I kept it as a secret because I wanted to see what you guys think about that idea.
So, I mean, I love it. I love it. What book were you thinking? Were you thinking that specific book?
Well, kind of my idea was like, I know Matt. So what I was going to do is I was going to get in touch with Matt and basically take this as kind of like the template. And then maybe like the 5 of us could add our own chapter in there, like Jor's chapter or Brandon's chapter, and kind of make a new version of it. And that's the book that we create and publish and send out to people.
That would be really cool.
Yep.
That's what I thought too.
Idea.
And we could all like sign every 10th copy or something so people could find it and like maybe make a certain amount of hard copies that would actually fund the paperbacks, something like that.
I've got this idea, like I'm working on it in my spare time. It's an open source book. It's not really a concept that happens very often, but publish as a README on GitHub, and anyone can contribute chapters to it. And it's sort of a comprehensive Bitcoin breakdown for the type of person. So it'd be broken into the individual, the business, and the Satoshi.
Oh yeah.
And the Satoshi is somebody who begins to spread Bitcoin as well. And then there's a chapter, on the business owner that just wants to accept Bitcoin to increase the business in there, and an individual, the reason for an individual to accept Bitcoin. And my idea with that is to have it open source so anybody can download and print it themselves and give it away to people. So it's like super minimal. And then to actually sell it on these print on demand sites as well, but at 0 profit. So it's literally just the cost of the print and the shipping to the individual. And then it's open source, so anybody can change it however they want if they wanted to print a different version of it. But it's like literally I have like 1 chapter in the breakdown of the thesis of table of contents, and that's it so far. So a ways off, but that would, like, regardless of what we do here with anything else, I'm stealing that idea and putting that book in free libraries.
Well, I mean, that's why I like this book. I like the title of it. It's called Simple Bitcoin Savings. So I feel like people would see the simple part of it and be like, okay, well, I should be able to understand it. It explains Bitcoin as a savings, not just like a stock that you're going to get rich on. And it's very easy to read and go through. So that was kind of my idea, is like we could just take this as kind of like the skeleton of it. Obviously, Forrest, you might have some different thoughts on what else we want to add to it, but then we could just kind of pile on top of this and just use this for like the starting point and come up with kind of like our own version of it that we could implement into this. What are those things called even? Like street libraries?
They're called, I think they're called free libraries.
Okay.
Or free little libraries, maybe?
Do you guys have that in
We do.
Europe, Robin?
We have it here in America, but yeah,
I've never heard about that, so I'm not sure.
Oh,
you can
really?
lay them on the street corner.
Dude, there's one like 3 houses down.
Robin is basically like what would you even call it? Like it's
a little drop box or like a little
yeah.
I'm trying to think.
It's an initiative that individuals do. So in front of their house, like next to the street, next to the sidewalk, they'll build like a little box, and then people just freely put books. Yeah, put books in there, take books out, and it's just free to anybody.
That's crazy. I think I've seen it probably only because I've heard about like people exchanging books, but I didn't hear it about in front of houses. I think this was like in libraries. There are sections where you can take out things. Like there's like a public library, and then there's like a small section where you can do that. I think I heard about that, but not in front of like houses and then individuals doing that. And I definitely have never seen books in front of a house. I've like literally never in my life.
Brandon, you got that in the US?
Yeah, we have them on like street corners and stuff like that. Like maybe like in downtown or little small towns. Like there'll be like one box at somewhere on the street, somewhere on the sidewalk, and it'll be a little drop box or like these little houses or whatever someone builds. Yep.
Yeah, there's an organization even for this one, littlefreelibrary.org. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I thought it was very local.
Anybody can put books in there, but I like the idea of having a Bitcoin book in there that's really easy to understand. That'd be very not daunting for anybody, but the main point there, I think, that is people are doing it themselves, right? Because there's been a lot of like people buying books and giving out to their community and friends and family, but I just feel like it's more of a push than a pull. I feel like a book sitting in one of those libraries would be a pull to somebody. And that's the most effective way to bring people into Bitcoin, I've found anyways.
Yep. 100% agree.
I have, in Austria, we have something different. I want to share this with you guys. I hope you guys also have that, probably not in the city. We have those things around on the land where you can go to the farms and buy directly from the farm the dairy that they produce on their farm. And it's actually in Austria quite widespread on all the farmlands. Like it's not obviously not in Vienna because there's no farms, but it's everywhere. Where I'm coming from, Upper Austria, like all the rural areas, and you can just like go there. And most of the time, it's like completely trust based. You can literally just go there and take the milk. You just like there's a box where you can put in cash. And so I don't know. I thought about like when you talked about the free library, I thought about like we in Austria we do the same thing with milk.
Specifically for dairy, because we have farm stands everywhere here too, but it's like whatever veggies, baked goods, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, there's stores, like there are farm stores, like the smaller ones where you can just go there once a week for like 5 hours. They open and then they like sell meat and everything like that. But those specifically usually only have dairy products like yogurt, even butter, sometimes like the milk itself, like all those things. And sometimes combination of things, like they even get like creative and make their own little brand, which is really fun, like a very decentralized thing. But yeah, it does not relate at all to the book. Sorry, I just put that in there.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you guys, and mostly, for you guys to think on, and that's why I love the idea of a mastermind. Is like, not I'm telling you what to do, but it's just like kind of get your mind thinking a little bit, and hopefully whether it's one of you guys or somebody in the audience who's watching this later, like that's how things start, I think, is just by being open to it, being on that kind of frequency and hearing ideas, and then just kind of taking your own spin on that.
We could even start, I like both of our ideas. Like we could even start an open source book mastermind where we kind of leverage AI and maybe some of our writings to write a book, the 5 of us, like now we're 4, but and have that kind of keep on writing that, and even have contributors open source from the audience that can keep on writing and like trying to do different things. And maybe after like 100 episodes, we can actually release that thing. I think
said the encyclopedia of Bitcoin. We just make it bigger, like, you know, because like you can go really small, which is smart, but also like just have the biggest book, like kind of like Forrest, what you're saying, like open source. Like, what if you just had a book that was that thick?
That'd be sick.
That'd be nasty.
Like an actual Bitcoin Bible.
Yeah,
that
actual,
has, like, all the books in it, and we can like print it and it's like such a book.
That'd be incredible. I've read at my coffee table.
Yeah,
I love it. I love the idea.
That'd be a long-term one, though.
Yeah,
But
that'd be a long-term one.
Like the idea of have something like really simple that somebody could pick up, read in a week, and start buying Bitcoin.
I love it.
Like that's exactly who you're targeting at a free library on the side of the road. Is the people that we want to be buying Bitcoin, or if I do anyways. Like I can't speak for you guys, but like it's the average people, the people on your block, where they might not listen to me. They have a certain preconceived notion about me or Bitcoiners or whatever. But they might find a book and say, oh, that's interesting. This guy's been talking about Bitcoin. Let me see what this is all about. Pick it up, read it, start buying Bitcoin. Boom.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm in. I'm totally in. Like, long-term for like a Forrest idea, the open source book, like that's like an encyclopedia of Bitcoin, like a massive book. That's a sick idea. And making it both open source, digital, and like an eventual encyclopedia thing, and you're, you know, have tons of people contributing. That'd be amazing. But I love your idea, Jor. Like I'm in. Both.
Cool.
Let's do it. I'm super down.
I love it.
I got to
know what we need, but I really don't think it would be that hard to coordinate.
Oh, I got to go, guys. Yeah, I got to go.
See you, Forrest.
Okay. See you guys.
See you, but yeah.
I think then we can anyways. I will bring one more thing up. I think because we will do it from next week on, the extra YouTube channel that we have created for that. I'll bring it. I'll quick. Yeah, what?
Like, is that channel's up, right?
The channel is up, but just we're not live on there.
Right, but people can subscribe to it already.
Exactly, yeah. And so it's, I think this kind of, this is the UL.
Nice name.
Yeah, we grabbed the nice one. Oh wait, I forgot.
It's actually a solid user handle.
Yeah, I also think so. Like it's you can remember it nicely. Oh, now I've finally figured out how to get it up on the screen.
Put it in the chat.
Yeah, the problem with the chat is like we have different chats. So if I put it in there, it's just in my chat. But that's basically the thing. Like you can just go there and like BTC Mastermind. And what we will do over I think next week we will do the first time where we stream on there, but also stream on our individual channels. And over maybe 1, 2, 3 months, I don't know what about the timeline, I will slowly diverge there. And the one big reason, and I think we haven't said that on the live stream, the one big reason for me, and I think for you guys also, is that we want to bring this community actually together in one place where we talk about Bitcoin, and then we have the luxury of you guys see each other also. So right now, we all see all the comments, but if you are in this live stream just on my YouTube channel or Brandon's YouTube channel or like Joe's, you only see the comments that are made on this specific channel. And this is literally the reason why I want to do this and collab and basically put this on one channel to have that combined live stream audience in there. So we will slowly get towards that. And if you guys already want to subscribe, you can do that. And starting from next week, we'll just do a hybrid where we do this and also our individual channels. And at some point, we probably just do the new one.
Love it. Hey, Robin, could you just share we should probably share like the link in the pinned comments or something after the show. Because I'm searching for it right now on YouTube and I can't find it anywhere. So it might be hard for people to find just searching that Mastermind.
It's super hard to find because it's a new channel with like no videos. And so you literally have to put in the script, type it in like youtube.com/@BTC Mastermind. Don't forget the @ like that's like unfortunately important. For some reason I can do youtube.com/@ youtube.com/Robin Seyr, but I cannot do youtube.com/BTC Mastermind. I don't know what's going on with the usernames and how this works. But like if you type it in exactly, you will find it. And I think this is just a natural, like if we do some videos there and like post some clips also, it will get good. But yeah, it takes some time to establish a complete new channel.
Yeah. Love it. Absolutely.
So Robin, are you going to save your idea for next week? Is that your idea?
Oh, it was a whole different idea.
You thought it was going to be the same as mine. I said there's probably no chance that's going to be
not even close, not even a little bit. But actually, it was related to some of the comments because I wanted to talk about Stretch. I personally believe that will increase Bitcoin adoption more than we think. This product specifically, or maybe even like products down the line. It's so interesting because I tell people about Bitcoin and Stretch these days, and when I tell them about Bitcoin, they're like, eh. When I tell them about Stretch, they're like, ooh, nice. And I'm like, why? Like, people want 10% now instead of 40% later. It's crazy for me. And so that's why I was talking in the middle of the episode of like those two characters, and the one that takes a 10% over 10 years, that makes from 100K to 260K, and he's happy. I rather take the 100K and do and make 2.8 million over 10 years with a 40% CAGR. And if it's a 30% CAGR, like it's probably like 1.8 or like 2 million or something like that. And it's still like drastically better than a 10% CAGR. That's actually the idea that came to my mind when you said it. But we actually had it in the comments here and there that people said like, we please talk about Stretch or something. And I think it would be fun to talk about that. But I think now it's like too late for that to really have a good standing in the episode.
Wet the whistle. Well, stretch it next week.
Yeah, stretch it to next week. It's probably, it took an hour and 20 minutes to get out the idea for me, so that's kind of my fault too. So, anyways, we'll build up. Yeah, we had the build up there for the secret topic, but you should be able to. We'll all maybe put that link to the new channel in the pinned comments of our videos. Yeah. If you just want to maybe share that on your guys', I'm not even hooked up to YouTube right now. I'm on Rumble and Nostr. But if you guys want to just put that link in the chat for people to go over there, it'd make it a little bit easier for them, I think, if you just paste that into the chat. Good artwork there, though. Wow, we look pretty legitimate.
Yeah, seriously.
It took me 10 minutes and AI, so...
Not bad. Damn.
Brandon looks like a freaking like Superman back there.
Yeah, what the heck? Clark Kent. My goodness.
Believe it or not, but Rajat was the hardest one for some reason. Like I had to redo it so many times because like the AI just like couldn't figure out. It was looking so weird with Rajat usually.
Couldn't figure out the beard and goatee, That's amazing.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Well,
this is
Brandon, you were talking about your BTC session show that you guys do. I was listening to that pretty much start to finish last week. Slightly different conversation, I would say, than this one.
Yeah.
So it's perfect. But I think that one of the things that I like that you guys do is you kind of end the show with something where you kind of go around and say something. I think it's like recommendation for the week or something. I think we should try to implement that into ours next week. I know we don't really have anything right now, but I really like that. It just kind of gives people a takeaway for it, something they can try out, and from 5 unique perspectives there. So whether it's that or something else, I like the idea of having something to kind of round out the show like that.
Is that like a recommendation of like what to do in Bitcoin, or is it like go read that, or like what is this kind of?
Could be anything. Yeah, it could be whatever. Like basically whatever's on your mind, what to keep your eyes on this week. That show, 2 different, very, very different shows, I think, actually, because that's more like current events and locker room talk, and this is more like we go through issues and educate people more. Like that. That's more of like everyone's having I think a drink or two and then doing the show. So that's a little bit of a different show, but I love the idea though, Jory. Yeah, like do something like everyone throws in their last little word of something to focus on for the week. Could be anything.
Yeah,
whatever's on your mind.
Yep. So like the difference between locker room versus like sitting in a restaurant and like talking.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. maybe like a dinner talk here is what we're doing, and then that's like a locker room. After you played your hockey game and you got a couple beers in the locker room with the boys afterward. That's played your football game, your rugby game, you're good to go, and then you're having the beers with the boys afterward. So at the pub later. So
yeah, this is like the lunch
PG
one,
version.
And that one's like 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
with
it is.
Beers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that was kind of the idea with this and that's why we call it the mastermind, is because we just want to talk through things, give our ideas, give our thought experiments, kind of look into the future and say, okay, if this happens, what's this going to look like? I just feel like there's it's such a scarce trait to be able to kind of take what we have and then project that into the future and say, okay, what's that going to look like realistically? And then you can kind of plan for it. So the mastermind idea though was like bringing people together, different parts of the world, different perspectives, talking through things, and basically open sourcing ideas for other people outside of the 5 of us to go out and implement themselves. And I just love doing that. I think that the things that I listen to myself are things that spark my creativity and like trigger my mind to start working. And that's what I kind of wanted this to be.
And we just gotten 2 new subscribers. We crossed the 10 subscriber mark. So like, congrats, congrats, Mastermind.
Nice work.
There we go.
Okay, boys.
Do you guys have any recommendations? Like anything like spare of the moment thing that you want to touch on, and maybe we can already start doing the routine?
Yeah, I'll start. I think that every Bitcoiner, anybody who owns Bitcoin right now and isn't on Nostr is crazy. Crazy. And Robin, you got to spend more time over on Nostr while I got you here. But there's a new website that is actually built by one of my friends over on Nostr, and it's just joinnosr.com. Joinnosr.com. So if you don't have a public key or a private key or an account on there, it really makes the process of like signing up very simple. It gives you your key pair. It directs you which app to use based on which device you're on. And it just kind of gets you in the door essentially. And then you can kind of figure it out from there. But I just think that Bitcoiners who are spending more time on Twitter than Nostr are really doing themselves a disservice there, because it's just a totally different environment. It's just, there's no fighting. I mean, there is obviously, depending on what you're looking at, but there's no algorithm. You can actually send Bitcoin peer-to-peer, value for value kind of thing. And it's just, it's a different kind of conversation than X. Everybody's kind of just fighting on X. Nostr is like, what can we build?
Love it. Yeah, I love it, guys.
Are you on Nostr also, Brandon?
I am. I'm on Nostr. I'm on not as much as I would like to be. So I'll take Jor's words of wisdom as well to heart, because I'm too inconsistent there. Like there's some days I'll be on it for a couple days in a row, then I'm off it for a couple days. And though I will say I'm not on Twitter nearly as much as one would think though either. If I'm on Twitter, I'm in Nostr too, if that makes sense. I'm not on too much going on with all the kids and trying just to focus on the positives, because as you guys know, holy cow. I mean, So, but Nostr, Nostr, if you want more positives, I would say definitely be there and and just, man, stay on the mission. Like it's us, it's a human system, and we keep sharing it, keep, just educating people, because as people wake up to what's happening with this phase transition, more dumb things happen, people will be looking for solutions, and Bitcoin's there. TikTok next block, it's going to be there. So, and it's like at the end of the day, you ask yourself, if Bitcoin can credibly enforce its supply of 21 million to stay decentralized and secure, and we know governments are going to print endlessly into oblivion, all fiat currencies gone to zero, then the math is pretty easy. A plus B equals C. And that's my thought. Stick with it.
I'm using Twitter as a communications platform mostly to like reach out to guests, and I'm actually trying to get off that. I'm asking guests like, hey, do you also have Signal, Telegram, anything else? To send you DMs, because Twitter is so buggy. I have so many bugs happening with Twitter sometimes. Sometimes I don't even get the notifications, and then 2 days later I'm opening them, like there's like 10 messages, and I'm like, I haven't even like, why don't you notify me at all? And so that's one thing, and that I use Twitter a lot for. And the other thing is just like, I put out things, and I'm rethinking that a lot these days, because of course, like it gets impressions, it gets those things, it gets kind of the thing going. But I don't feel really a passion for that. And so I'm thinking actually of like scaling down Twitter to just like one thought a day, just like thinking, hey, like what is one thought that I have right now, and just putting that out on Twitter, rather than, I had a phase where I put out 12 tweets a day. When I got started in 2024, I had an average on 55 tweets with the reply tweets per day for the whole year. I tweeted a lot. And now I'm more on the other side where I scroll through the replies and see what was interesting there. Like I usually reply to like 5 people per day and then put out one thought a day out there, and it's like more low time preference. And then there's the question of like, I can just do that one thought a day also on Nostr. It's just like a hassle because then I have to another platform, and I'm already not happy with having that one platform. Like, I want to add platform. Like I want to get less platform, just focus on the podcast and live streaming, because this is podcast and live streaming is really rewarding. You get to sit down with amazing people and just like ping pong play with your mind. And you have an idea, you have an idea, you have an idea. Like that is so underrated. Yeah. If I have to like highlight one major advantage of having a podcast or a live stream or like a group of people, you have focused conversation with a group of people that are like-minded and still disagreeable. So if you tell shit, they will tell you that you just told shit and like it's not true. And it's such an underappreciated thing, because it's very rare to have it in real life, having a conversation without the phone, without the things. And we noticed like we wanted to, I think, close the live stream like 20 minutes ago. Like it just keeps on going because I feel like it's like a very nice thing. Like the brain really loves those conversations. And I could podcast and live stream all day long if I could do that somehow.
So true.
So true. That's what I would say to people on Nostr is like, just get on there, start exploring. You got to follow a bunch of people because there's no algorithm, but like you can just be you. That's the one thing I found about Nostr for me is like, yeah, I got my YouTube channel. Yeah, I have my whatever else, but Nostr, I just go on and share my thoughts, and I share a picture and I share a video, and it's just like, it's the closest thing to me that I have, and nobody can take that away from me too. That's the cool part about Nostr is like, it's not going to any centralized servers where they can rug me. It's like, I own this data. I'm taking it seriously, and I've been on there for 3 years, and it's been probably the best decision of my, my professional and non-professional lives, is just being part of people in a mastermind, because that's who's on there. It's a bunch of Bitcoiners who want real change. They don't care what's happening with MSTR or the price of Bitcoin. It's people who are actually trying to build the future that they want to see. And there's no place like Nostr from my experience there.
Agreed.
100%. So yeah, I think if you guys, I think we can close it down now. I think we have the thoughts of the day and the recommendations of the day out there. I already saw we already got 5 new subscribers now nice. On the new channel. That's awesome. BTC Mastermind. I think this is the channel that we're trying to build with you guys, and which will be the home long term for those conversations. And we have already thoughts on like beyond that. Of like having groups and communities, and I think this could be really cool in the future. But one step at a time. Thank you guys so much for coming on here, and see you.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Robin.
Next week. Great stuff. Thanks, guys.